It finally happened. It finally happened. The Kings blew out a shorthanded team. It is absolutely a miracle. Honestly, just a big relief in this one that they finally did it. And I had a feeling that this would probably be the game that they would do it in, but I've said that about other games. They've lost or had close games against some really bad teams and some really shorthanded teams. But this Raptors, no doubt, up there with one of the worst they've played this season. Four starters out for the Raptors, an already bad Raptors team. I don't even think the Raptors were really good before they made trades. Then they obviously make trades. Then all the guys that they trade for are out anyways. And so it had to be all wrapped up nicely for the Kings to finally take advantage. But they did it. 123-89 in just a very low stress game. And the Kings have been trending in the right direction. Now, obviously, you have that game against Memphis. That was not fun. That was very stressful, but they were able to pull out the win. They've won 6 out of their last 8, with the 2 losses coming to that weird game against the Knicks and then the Rockets, who have been on fire recently. And so the Kings have been taking care of business. And this game against the Raptors, this is the type of game where it would always all fall apart, where they have this little bit of a streak going, this good vibes, have been winning some good games and been playing some very good defense as of late. This is where it would all fall apart, and it finally didn't. Now, that being said, they do tomorrow go into Washington and play the Wizards. And so that's another game that they just should absolutely win. And so it could still fall apart there as well. But at least we've gotten past two of the hurdles, two of these three hurdles of depleted slash bad teams in Memphis and Toronto. And recently, it's just been all about the defense. And that also happens to coincide with Keon Ellis getting more minutes and getting some starts. Kevin Huerter was out in this one, so obviously Keon Ellis slides into the starting lineup. Trey Lyles also out. Sasha Vezenkov questionable coming into this game, but he was also out. Hopefully we'll see him back soon. That'd be very nice. But you look at these past 5 games, even 6. So 6 games ago, even though it was a loss, give up 112 to the Rockets. Then it's 94 to the Bucks, 107 to the Lakers, 98 to the Knicks. 111 in an overtime game to the Grizzlies, and then 89 here to the Raptors. Now, we haven't exactly been playing offensive powerhouses. You could look at the Bucks and say that one was really good, allowing only 94 points in that one. But obviously, some of these other teams are not great offensively. But that's the thing. It's kind of what we've been talking about the whole time. It hasn't mattered whether the teams have been good or absolutely horrible offensively. Every team was scoring on the Kings. Every team was shooting their best 3-point percentages against the Kings, no matter who it was. And so we've seen them be able to pick it up defensively in the month of March and be one of the better defensive teams here in March. And that's extremely encouraging. So in this game against the Raptors, I thought they came out and they started with the right defensive intensity. And that's an entire team thing, but also I think it helps when you have a guy like Keon sliding into the starting lineup. I've talked about this a lot over the past 2 games of having someone who's going to come in and set the tone immediately defensively and not let guys get into a groove, especially when you're going up against a shorthanded team where there's young guys coming in who are getting their shot. You don't want to let them get that early confidence. Each time a new Raptor would come into the game, I was just like, just don't give them an open shot within the first couple of possessions that they're out there. Because when that happens, when a guy gets those first couple of looks to go down, that's when bad things can happen. And so that's why I've been supporting Keon Ellis in the starting lineup for a long time. Because with him and Fox out there, those are 2 really good point of attack defenders. And then you have Keegan on the wing and around the basket who can, block shots and use his length as well. And so I think you just saw really good defensive intensity from the start. Now, it didn't totally last throughout the first quarter, and I think You saw the Raptors after a few good possessions, maybe 4, 5 good defensive possessions from the Kings to start the game. Then the Raptors started to get some open shots. I think you saw Harrison Barnes as the main culprit for a lot of these open looks, just not closing out in time. And Harrison Barnes in this game, he played 19 minutes. And now the starters didn't play a lot of minutes, but even compared to other starters, you have Fox at 28, Keegan 31, Ellis 25, right? So it's still considerably less than the other starters. And so I think the defense has a lot to do with that because he was shooting the ball well. And this is something I talked about earlier in the season where I think Barnes can still be a very solid player, even though he is past his prime a bit, but just not in 40 minutes a night. Like him playing a good 20 minutes a night, 20, 25 minutes a night, I'm all for that because he has his limitations on the defensive end, but he still, I mean, this season has been our best shooter out there. And there were plenty of great possessions where the Kings were moving the ball, and it was when like Keon, Davion, Monk were out there and they were driving and kicking, and then the next guy would drive and kick. And they would just keep driving and kicking until the ball found its way to Harrison Barnes, and then he would take the shot and a lot of times hit the shot. So I think Barnes is still very valuable to this team. I mean, he went 6 for 9, had 16 points, but it's just nice when you have a guy like Chris Duarte coming off the bench and being able to play a considerable role. So then you don't have to play Harrison Barnes an extraordinary amount of minutes. Of the first 3 quarters where things, actually mattered, because it was just garbage time the entire fourth quarter. Of the first 3 quarters, I think the first quarter was the worst for the Kings. I mean, if you just look at the numbers, they only outscored the Raptors by 5 in the quarter, but they still outscored them by 5. And there were just a few times where they got a little sloppy with the ball and they got back cut a couple times. You have, Fox coming over to help, but he didn't really need to help. And then you have Abaji catching the lob, or you just have other guys back cutting, or the Raptors getting 3 offensive rebounds on one possession. I think Jonte Porter was a big part of that. And speaking of the Raptors being shorthanded, they even lost Jonte Porter pretty quickly in this game. He played only 3 minutes. But so you can see there's a little sloppiness, maybe a little not being locked in. So there are a few of those moments, but it wasn't overwhelmingly bad. And the Kings were generating a lot of open looks, and they weren't really knocking them down, but they still scored 32 points in that first quarter. Keegan, just his shot has not been falling recently, 0 for 5 from 3. But for him, he really found ways to impact this game in other ways, cutting to the rim, driving to the rim. I mean, the Kings were absolutely abusing my guy Grady Dick. It sucks to say, but he is not very strong. You had Fox go at him right away. You could see the Kings trying to get Barnes in the post. And if Keegan's going right at you and trying to even get in the post against you, that's when you know it's bad, because usually we ain't trying to get the ball to Keegan in the post. But so Keegan was taking advantage of that. And then his rebounding was also really good. The amount of times he was getting in there for offensive rebounds, he only got credit for 3, but I think he got more than that, really, just from him getting in there and getting tips. And the Kings in general were really good on the offensive boards. And I think that those offensive rebounds in the second quarter were really important because, yes, the Kings got a nice double-digit lead pretty early in the second quarter. Monk came in, was immediately making an offensive impact. You had Fox knocking down his threes. You had both of them finding Len inside. But then the Kings offense went a little cold, and they started to allow the Raptors to score a little bit, and not a lot. They were still, getting stops, but their offense went really cold, and it just felt like this is the moment that the Kings have always been struggling in. They get this double-digit lead, and then they kind of just relax. They don't extend it. They don't take it to the opponent when they have the opportunity. Like they had Malik Monk pull up for 3 and then, miss, and then they turned it over in transition. They were trying to throw a lot of long passes in transition, and a lot of them did work, but they turned over a few of those. And so it got a little nerve-wracking because those are the same patterns that we've seen in the games where the Kings have not been able to blow these types of teams out. But I thought Chris Duarte was huge in turning things around. I don't think he had the best defensive game. Like, he was getting beat off the dribble a little too easily. Jordan Nwora was really good in this game, and had that assignment, and that was tough for him. But still, like, better than Harrison Barnes on the defensive end, obviously. And he was, giving effort out there, just got beat off the dribble a little bit. But it was the offensive end where he really made his mark, and it was the offensive rebounding. I thought he had a bunch of really key offensive rebounds that kept the Kings' offense going, despite them turning the ball over, missing some free throws. Those second chance points really kept the Kings going. And then at the end of the quarter, they made that big run, 11-0 run in the last about 2 minutes. And that pushed the lead to 23. And that's when it felt like, okay, I think this game is really going to be different from the other ones. Not that we haven't had 20-point leads going into halftime and then blown them. We have, like against the Bulls. But it felt pretty good after that run, after the Kings were able to fight through that stretch of going cold offensively and find other ways to score, both getting to the free throw line, getting offensive rebounds, but then really just the defensive side of the ball, getting stops and turning those into scores on the other end. They had multiple steals in that 11-0 run. Keon was really good. They also had a stop at the rim that led to a Keon Ellis 3. I thought the guys that were especially good defensively, Fox was really good staying in front of his man, but also closing out well. And those are hard to do at the same time, but he's really good at it. Keon Ellis is also very good at that. And Keon had 4 steals and 1 block in this game. I mean, the dude is just a stock monster. And then you have Keegan. He got 2 blocks and a steal. And I also thought Sabonis did a really good job of whenever the Raptors tried to get the ball to Kelly Olynyk at the top, he was constantly pressuring him. He didn't get any steals, but he was constantly trying to get his hand on the ball and just making Kelly Olynyk uncomfortable up top. And I think that's really important to do. And this type of defense is what the Kings have been doing in this stretch in March. And it's so refreshing to watch. Keegan took a charge. You had just great verticality at the rim, forcing the Raptors to miss. The Raptors had 21 turnovers, kind of what you expect from a Raptors team that's starting Bruce Brown at point guard pretty much. But again, like, sure, this is what the Kings were supposed to do, but with how many times they haven't done this, I'm still going to give them their flowers for doing what they were supposed to do and what they haven't been able to do so much this season. Because if I criticize the bad, then when they do turn it around and actually do what they're supposed to do, you got to give them credit. But also, it's not like this is just a one-game thing. It's how they've been playing over the past couple of weeks. And then they came out from halftime, had 2 turnovers to start the third quarter. I didn't see the first one because, of course, they're showing highlights while the first possession is happening, and I can hear the whistle blow and hear the play happening, and they're not cutting away. What are you doing? The production is just awful. I missed about 3 plays, I think, in this game, maybe 4, due to the production being absolutely horrible. But anyways, somehow we turned it over on that first possession, and then I think Keegan might have turned it over both times. Don't know if he was responsible for the first one. And so that's obviously not great, but they turned it around. And again, I think Keegan was impacting the game in other ways. He had a really nice floater. Keon with the steal into the Fox 3. Keegan getting more offensive rebounds. The Kings defense just being super active. And it was just so fun to watch. Then the Raptors went small, and the Kings were kind of trying to force it into Sabonis. And that, it worked a little, but then it's like, okay, we don't need to be doing it every possession. Let's get the ball moving a little bit. But Sabonis was doing a good job of facilitating from that position, and he ended up getting the triple-double from that pretty much. His stats are incredible. He had a triple-double within 25 minutes. 13 points, 17 rebounds, 10 assists. 6 of those were offensive rebounds. Got a block in there. His free throws have been looking a lot better. I think he only had one game where they looked off recently that I can remember. And the team in general has been shooting better from the free throw line. They shot 15 for 18 uh, in this game, so that's nice. And I think what I really loved from this game was the Kings going 12 for 41 from three. That's obviously not good. They had 15 turnovers. That's not great. Some of them were bad. Some of them were those like full court passes. That's not great, but they were still able to absolutely blow out the Raptors anyways, despite those things. And it starts on the defensive end. If you're getting stops, those types of things probably don't matter. The turnovers definitely can matter because then you're not playing defense in the half court. But it doesn't matter if you're shooting 29% from three. You should always beat this Raptors team, and they did that through their defense. The Kings had 36 fast break points in this game. At one point, it just felt like everything the Kings were scoring was on the fast break. And that was like end of the third, start of the fourth. Everything was in transition. It felt like Davion was scoring all of them. So you had 36 fast break points, 68 points in the paint, 33 points off the Raptors turnovers. I really don't understand turnover numbers because I'm looking at ESPN and they have different numbers everywhere. This says 22 turnovers, then that says 21 turnovers. Why can't they make up their mind? But anyways, and then you had all those second chance points as well. And just not letting any one guy really get going for the Raptors, at least not easily. Like Jordan Nwora was making some tough moves, some tough shots, but that was about it for guys that really got going. The Raptors went on a streak of over 5 minutes without a field goal in that third quarter, and the Kings only allowed 38 points combined in the middle two quarters. I haven't really talked about Alex Len, but Len was really good on both ends of the court. You could see the Raptors were super scared to try to go up inside against Len. So he was this shot blocking threat, but then also on the offensive end, he was making so many good passes. He made two really nice backdoor passes. He caught the ball and finished well. He caught that outlet pass, I think it was from Duarte, and took those two massive steps and dunked it. Knocked down his free throws, just did everything right. And I'm just such a big Alex Len fan and have been for so long because it just seems like he so rarely makes mistakes. And he is a skilled passer and a good decision maker in the dribble handoff game. And so that helps the Kings offense a lot. And I already talked about the offensive rebounding a lot, 18 offensive rebounds for the team. But it was just the way everyone was crashing the glass. And not necessarily everyone at once, but just when guys were in position to, they would crash the glass, whether it was Keon trying to come in and tip a ball away. Keegan was great. Sabonis was obviously just like parked down there, getting offensive rebounds. Duarte getting those offensive rebounds. And just that hustle where a lot of times the short-handed team, the team with the guys that have something to prove, the young guys that have something to prove, that's going to be the team that is going to be out hustling the other team, and that wasn't the case. The Kings were out hustling the Raptors on the offensive glass. I don't think anyone had a bad game, and this was just one of those games where everything went right other than three-point shooting pretty much. Just a very fun game to watch. It was nice that we had the G League players on hand to come in, the two-way guys. Garbage time is always fun, extended garbage time. It was funny when the Kings bring in their garbage time unit, the Raptors also have their garbage time unit out there, except it's their starters because that's how bad their available roster is right now. We ran that, we had Colby Jones in there trying to run the point for a while. That was not pretty. It was a lot of Colby Len handoff action. Didn't look great, resulted in a lot of turnovers. Definitely a bit rough there. So then I like how Mike Brown inserted Chris Duarte as the guy. Not a guy that's going to, run the offense, but he got the ball in his hands and then he was like, I'm just going to start scoring. And I feel like we kind of saw and we have been seeing the Chris Duarte that we saw in his rookie season and that we thought we were hopefully getting when we traded for him. And he has been so much better lately. So I think he's figured it out. Obviously shooting really well from three helps. And so we'll see when, when he's slumping a little bit, then how does he continue to impact the game? Does he maintain a spot in the rotation? When guys come back, does he maintain a spot in the rotation? But I think when guys come back, that's a good problem to have. Davion looked good finishing at the rim in transition. It was just a track meet. Slauson had a really nice dunk. JaVale, I thought he was going to go for something a little bigger than he did. I'm not going to lie. JaVale minutes are always fun, though. And you had Malik giving him the 2 thumbs down. And I was kind of with Malik. Like, you're JaVale McGee. You got to do something crazy. You can't just flush it with 2 hands. We expect more out of him. And then the last guy, Kessler Edwards, came in, scored 9 points. Got up 5 threes in the 12 minutes he played. Of course, he's going to get up the threes. The one thing that I always notice about Kessler is just how long he is. He was contesting a Grady Dick shot, and Grady is very long, and he shoots, like he has a very high release point, but Kessler was able to make him pretty much pass out of his shot just because of how long he is. Some other notes from this game. You have Sabonis recording his league-leading 24th triple-double and his, I believe, 51st straight double-double. And this was a good game to have because the Kings are on the road playing a back-to-back tomorrow, and they play 3 and 4 nights. So good to get the starters some rest. Malik Monk, some rest. And the Kings have a lot of back-to-backs towards the end of the season, and so always good to get guys rest towards the end of the season. This next game against the Wizards have a bunch of guys out. I'm not even really gonna look it up. I just know they have a bunch of guys out, and I'm not gonna look it up because it shouldn't matter. Hopefully the Kings are able to come out and play with the same intensity and really start with the same intensity that they did. It's not like the Kings got off to like a 10-0 start or something against the Raptors, but I still think they set the tone in the right way for how they should and would go on to play. And so I just want to see that. Same thing here against the Wizards. Maybe Sacha Vezenkov will be back. He was questionable going into the game against the Raps. He has gone through a practice, and so it'd be very nice to get him back into the rotation. And anyways, that is it for this episode of the Roll Report. I will see you guys tomorrow after the game against the Washington Wizards. Peace.